Assalamu alaikum viewers. nlpmantra.com, campus.pk, Ilmkidunya में सबकी तरफ से माइंड इंजीनियर मोहम्मद अली आपके सामने एक मरतबा फिर हाजिर खिदमत। व्यूअर्स, हमेशा की तरह हम अपनी एक और बैठक लेकर इंशाल्लाह आपके सामने आए हैं और आज की जो हमारी बैठक है वो बड़ी ही मज़ेदार होने वाली है। वैसे तो हर बैठक ही बहुत मज़ेदार है, लेकिन आज की बैठक तो और भी ख़ास तौर पे मज़ेदार है। आज मेरे साथ बड़े ही ज़बरदस्त गेस्ट हैं और इनका नाम है, मैं बल्कि इनका नाम बताने से पहले मैं ये बताता चलूँ कि ये माशाल्लाह बहुत ज़बरदस्त काम कर रहे हैं और करते रहे हैं। इनका ताल्लुक जो है वो वैसे तो चलिए इंट्रोडक्शन से खुद कराएंगे यार। लेट मी वेलकम लाइव विद अस शेख रियाज अंसारी। अस्सलाम वालेकुम शेख, क्या हाल है?
Alhamdulillah. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Nice to see you again.
Same here, Sheikh, same here, and thank you for joining us all the way from Turkey. And by the way, Sheikh just finished his iftar and salah for to join us. So Sheikh, Jazakallah khair, thank you very much. Sheikh, for my viewers, we will be doing a little bit of. I'll be translating it a little bit in Urdu when there will be a need and demand. So
Okay.
I'll just update you. I know you can't speak Urdu that much.
मैं
So
थोड़ा बहुत बोल सकता हूँ.
ग्रेट शेख, थोड़ा बहुत पे आज हम गुजारा करेंगे। So mashallah, that's great sheikh. Okay, sheikh, for the viewers I would like you to give, I know a lot of people know you mashallah, but still a little bit of an introduction of your background, if you can.
It'll take the whole thing just to explain my ethnic.
No need to go that far. No need to go that far.
My father is Afghan. My mother's American, and my
Yeah.
father married my mother in America. Took her back to Afghanistan, and when I was 8, the family moved back to America. Then my father went back to Afghanistan. I was raised by my mother as a non-Muslim, and I accepted Islam at the age of 22 during a trip to Pakistan. So I have
Again,
I have
another
a
Pakistani.
soft spot in my heart for Pakistan.
Yeah, another Pakistani convert. Huh?
Yeah.
We had Sheikh Tahir Khalid also saying the same thing earlier.
Right. And I was watching some kind of, there was something on my YouTube feed about famous people who accepted Islam in 2020, and I'd never heard of any of them. they were all YouTubers, but one of them
Yeah.
accepted Islam in Pakistan, I guess, and now lives there.
Yeah, mashallah. See, that's how Sheikh things move, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
Sheikh, you accepted at the age of 22, and mashallah, now you are only what, 23 or 24?
Yeah, you can see I feel like that guy. I don't know if you ever saw the Simpsons movie. There's
Yes.
there's a part where the dome comes down on the city and they can't get any Botox in. There's an old guy on the TV, and his face is just collapsing. So I feel like that guy. I'm
Uh,
60. I'm 65 years old.
yeah. So the reason I mentioned this is, and let me explain this to my audience in Urdu. शेख ने माशाल्लाह 41 साल 41 ईयर्स हो गए हैं इनको इस्लाम कबूल किए हुए। और इनके जैसे ने बताया ये अफ़गान, इनके वालिद अफ़गानी थे, वालदा इनकी अमेरिकन थी, और ये एक नॉन मुस्लिम की हैसियत से इनकी परवरिश पाई इन्होंने अकेली अपनी माँ के साथ। और अब शेख, यू आर इन टर्की नाउ, राइट?
Yeah, I've been here 2 years.
2 years. Great. Because I was in the illusion you are still in Malaysia. So
No.
okay, great. Sheikh, our topic today is very, very interesting, and it's very close to my heart, your heart, Sheikh Tahir Khalid, and everybody I speak to, youth. And youth, coupled with whatever is going around in the globalization, so-called globalization, uh, what impact it is making for the youth in general and the Ummah in specific, and the youth of the Ummah specifically. So that is where I want to start with.
Um, well, I wouldn't call globalization so-called. It's real.
Yeah, probably yes.
um, and uh, the thing for me is that the world keeps changing, and
Indeed.
um, so there's a sort of a pull for Muslims. We have this period in our history that was the ideal, the period during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, especially in Medina, and uh, people look back to that as something that somehow they would like to revive it. Okay, well, that's never going to happen. Um,
We don't have the same people anymore.
yeah, history doesn't repeat itself. It's that's there's a verse in the Quran. Tilka ummatun qad khalat, laha ma
Mhm.
kasabat wa lakum ma kasabtum, wa la tus'aluna amma kanu ya'malun. Yani there are
Indeed.
people who've gone before, uh, and they did what they did. You're earning what you're earning, and you won't be asked about what they did. Um,
Indeed.
so we have to. We definitely need to look at that era for inspiration, but we have to realize what kind of a world we're living in, and we have to deal with it.
Indeed. And
So
yeah,
go ahead,
please.
go ahead.
No, no, please, please, Sheikh, please go. Sorry, I thought you were quiet.
So you know the world has it's it's not just changing. It's like you drop a ball off a cliff, 32 feet per second squared acceleration, right?
Yeah.
uh, it keeps changing faster and faster and faster. Um, so, like when I was born, there were 3.5 billion people in the world. It's now over 7 billion. For 2,000 years, it was creeping up toward a billion. Now it's just uh, changing faster and faster.
Indeed.
And I remember when I was in college, somebody made this observation. If you're driving at night 60 miles an hour and a deer starts to cross the road,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you won't see it until your headlights pick it up.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
headlights only they only go a certain distance.
Yes.
So if you're going 60 miles an hour, you see the deer, you slam on the brakes, and you screech to a halt. You survive, the deer survives. Okay, now you're going 100 miles an hour. You see the deer, you slam on the brakes, it's too late, you know?
Absolutely.
So we're living in this world where things are changing so fast, and nobody knows, oh, this thing that you think is good, maybe it's not so good. Oh, we didn't realize that this thing would come out of it. And then, after 20 years or 40 years or 50 years, you see, oh my God, all that DDT that we were spraying to kill those bugs, now it's now it's
Yes.
in our fat cells because we're eating stuff that ate the DDT.
Yes,
So,
indeed, Sheikh. Sheikh, I just remember one hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and I think that is a reflection of what you just said. Uh, and correct me if I'm quoting it wrong, but the meaning of the hadith is in the sense that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that there will be a time when the time will move very fast. So a year would be like a month. I think month would be like a week, and a week
yeah.
would be like a day, and a
Mm,
day would finish like this. So
mm.
what does that mean? Is this the time we're talking about? He was talking about.
Well, in every era, it's if you read Shuruh al Hadith, like I had the enjoyable task of working on a translation of Sahih Muslim that never got published
Mashallah,
for
mashallah.
Dar al
I didn't
Fard.
know that. I didn't know that. Mashallah.
I guess I should put it online, except that I made notes and I changed my opinion about most of what I made notes on. Uh, but so uh, if you read the commentators on hadith, uh, 300 years, 400 years after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they'll quote a hadith. There'll be these hadiths about ashrat as-sa'a, signs of the day of judgment,
Yes,
the approach of the day of judgment, and so they'll say, "Man, it's got to be any minute now, because look at this. This is see this hadith. You look around you, just look
indeed,
around. You're seeing
indeed,
the signs." So
indeed.
in every period of history, people kind of look at those hadith and they say, maybe it's now. Um, so yeah, we can say, yeah, maybe it is.
But
But
Sheikh,
I
the
mean,
thing, yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, please, please, no, no, please
There,
go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, there are definitely certain things that are different now from any era in the past. And one of the most striking ones in Surah Al-Isra, فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ الْآخِرَةِ جِئْنَا بِكُمْ لَفِيفًا. Allah is addressing the Bani Israel. He said, settle in the earth. And when uh, the promise of the hereafter comes, we will bring you as assembled groups. And that certainly looks like it's been realized with the creation of the state of Israel.
Isn't it a bit paradoxical that, as you just mentioned, that people say these things every time, whenever the times are. I mean, like Ashab Kiram Razilatullah Anhuma, they also used to have this kind of feeling. I know Tabein had this feeling, Taba Tabein had this feeling. But do you really think that today, when we talk about the globalization and the movement of time and the shortening of distances, because like you're sitting in Turkey right now, I'm sitting here in Lahore, and we don't have any, there's no distance left anymore. But
Right.
if you had said these things to somebody 50 years ago, or probably maybe not 50, let's say 100 years ago, he would have laughed at you. Are you crazy or what? So is this globalization really helping us, or it is something which is detaching us or our youth, and actually disintegrating our ummah, or you think it is better for the ummah to get close? What is your opinion about it?
Uh, I'm very fond of the opening paragraph of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities.
Oh wow, yeah,
It,
I
it
know.
was it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yes,
So, um, yeah, there's lots of things about it that are amazing and wonderful, um, and there are lots of things about it that are horrifying and unprecedentedly scary. Um, and the thing about globalization is that it's being driven by um, a small group of elites, um, and and there's this sort of human nature that uh, um, if you're there's this parable of Isa. He said, it's uh, they have these kind of sayings that are attributed to Isa in Islamic tradition, right? So there's one uh, where he says that the dunya is like salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. Um, and and so we're all beset by this situation where we want to maximize our dunya, and so the people who have a lot want more.
yes, which
And
is which is a shame.
well, it's there's this phenomenon that's noted in the Quran, and it's something that if you study history, it just keeps repeating itself, which is people destroy themselves seeking what they think will be good for them, and so uh, if if a little is of something is good, then a lot must be much better,
much better.
right?
So, Sheikh, where does the youth? I mean, who is to be blamed today? Is it the youth to be blamed if we see a lot of them getting into the notion of what do you call this Scientology, or I believe in nothing. I'm an atheist, or all religions are same. Things like these. Is it the youth? They need to be blamed. Is it us generation who actually nurtured this youth in a different way? Number one, that's the blame part, and then where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, everybody has their circle that surrounds them, and people in given the age of the internet, um, you know, it's a totally different ball game than growing up in a village. If you're in a village, everybody thinks the same, they do everything the same, they eat the same food in the same way, their schedule's the same. And if anybody's a little bit different, it's like, what are you doing? Somebody's going to call you out on it. You move to a city, and you can become kind of anonymous, and people. There's lots of different types of people, and you can find your own little group in the city. Um, Now your city is the whole world,
World. Yes.
and I tease my daughter that she has imaginary friends, right? So she she has friends she's never seen in real life. I mean, my imaginary friends that I talk to by WhatsApp and etc. I've actually met them.
Yeah.
My daughter has these friends that she's never been in the same physical.
World.
She's you know the closest she's come to them is probably 2,000 miles. So that's the world we live in. People can become friends with people in any part of the world, and they can seek out um, information, uh, at the touch of a fingertip, and 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 part of it is, if you watch YouTube, the computer decides what you should watch next, right? It gives you a choice,
Absolutely.
of 20 or 30. Okay,
It's
somebody's
actually
programming that computer, and it's
illusion of choice. It doesn't give you a choice. It's an illusion.
yeah. I mean, you know, uh, it gives you a limited choice based on some kind of algorithm. You know, I had a friend. Actually, you probably know him too. I won't mention his name, but he's a computer expert. He grew up in the UAE, and he was going to do some presentation in Saudi Arabia, and he got stopped, and they said, sorry, we're going to take your
You can go.
passport, come down to the police station, and and for an interview. And he was like, tr- he's telling me the story, and he's trying to explain to me, what he thought was going on. And I said, it sounds like you've run afoul of an algorithm. He was called down to the police station, and the guy who he said the guy who was interviewing him was he was himself the bad cop and the good cop.
Okay. So he had both the notions.
He started out really rough, and then he'd switch, and he'd be nice, and then he'd get rough. So the guy was saying to him, "What have you done?" And he was like, "You tell me. I don't know." So we live in this world where you have these algorithms that are determining, uh, who you are and what you should like, and so people get fed information, and people seek it out also. There's if you haven't read it, I recommend a book called Agent Storm. It's
Okay, no, I haven't read.
really interesting book. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I've not gone through it.
uh, the guy was like a minor criminal. He went to jail. He was a member of a biker gang in Denmark, and the prison library, he found a book about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He read that book, and he fell in love with the personality of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He accepted Islam,
Mashallah.
and then to make a long story short, he ended up in Yemen eventually, and he was with these kind of Salafi jihadis,
Hmm.
and he was getting ready to go to Somalia. This was fairly long time ago. Somalia had just been invaded by Ethiopia, and he was going back and forth between Yemen and Europe, and he was getting stuff ready, and then he was reading about how the guys that were his side, they were getting defeated here and there, and so he started to have these doubts. It's like, wait a minute, what I read about that man, he kept winning all the time.
So who are these people then?
So he said, what's going on here? Why are we losing? And
Interesting.
and and it it put this doubt in his heart, and this is what I found so interesting about it. He had this doubt that, wait a minute, we're not winning, this can't be right. And so what did he do? He went on the internet and he typed contradictions in the Quran.
Oh, really?
So, when I was reading that, it reminded me of this verse. It says, وَمَنْ يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى. Whoever takes away other than the Prophet's way, yushaqiq, yani it's like you're on an iceberg and it splits in half. So they're going different ways. So you're going a different way from the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then you follow a way other than the believer's way. Allah says we turn that person in the direction that he himself has turned. In
Wow.
other words, okay, you want to go that way? Here,
All yours.
let me put the wind into your sails. Go for it. So
Subhanallah.
you have this doubt based on what? You know, you want to win in this world, okay? so, and so then the next thing is, okay, now let me find evidence to feed my doubt. And, I last year, somebody, a friend of mine, he put me in contact with a friend of his who's a Pakistani origin. He's a Desi, a Pakistani, but born in America.
Desi.
And so this gentleman, he used to be active with Dawah. He used to give tours of the mosque and this city that we lived in, and um, his wife had reached out to our mutual friend because he'd gone on these websites, and he just kept reading and reading. Somebody in England, a Pakistani who'd left Islam, and he had all these doubts about Islam, and so I thought maybe he'd reached the level of atheism. He said, no, he said, I have no doubt about the existence of God. And he said, my doubts are about the Quran, and he said, I don't think that the Quran is what Muslims think it is, and so and the essence of his doubt was related to people going to hell forever.
Mhm.
He just couldn't,
Buy
that
that idea.
he couldn't, emotionally, he couldn't deal with that, and so you know that's
But so, Sheikh, going
different
back to
people
that
have
book,
different. Go ahead.
going back to that book, what was the name you said? Agent.
Agent Storm,
So,
Storm. Yeah.
so what did he eventually do? Did he come out of that?
Oh, he became an agent for the CIA, and he and Danish intelligence and British intelligence, and he wrote the book because he was complaining that he uh, he gave Anwar al-Awlaki a booby trap computer that would allow them to target him with a drone strike, and then when they killed him, he wanted money. He said, "Look, I did that job for you. I want money." And they said, "No, your thing didn't actually work. We got him on our own." So he was angry that he hadn't gotten paid. So so he wrote this book to get money, from at least salvage something from his adventure in Yemen and in the Muslim world.
No, this is another lesson, by the way, that not that everything that glitters is not gold, right?
Yeah. عسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم. You may hate something, it's good for you. You may love something, it's bad for you. Allah knows, you don't know.
So Sheikh, what do you think? What is the way forward? If we want the youth to take benefit out of, and the youth of Ummah actually take benefit out of this globalization and strengthen our iman, our yaqeen, because I think yaqeen is more important than just having iman. So what do you think? What is the way forward now? What should we be doing?
Well, those resources that are available online. I mean, if you want to feed your doubts, you can do that. If you want to feed your iman, you can search out that which will strengthen it. So, um, personally, like, I find people who have intellectual depth, and I get the sense of them being really grounded in iman. So I enjoy listening to people like that. Uh, so ala sabil al mithal, these people are controversial. They're all controversial.
Yes.
Um, um, Hamza Yusuf, I may not agree with everything that he says, but uh, a lot of what I disagree with him about, later I come around and say, he had a kind of a point there.
Maybe.
uh,
Yasir Qadi.
uh, Yasser Qadi,
Very,
I
very
enjoy
recent.
listening. I enjoy listening to him. Noman Ali Khan, I enjoy listening to him.
By the way, Noman Ali Khan is coming with me on 29th.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, he'll
I
be
mean,
like this.
yeah, I mean, everybody has mistakes, but that's not a reason to hate them, or to really concentrate. And if a person wants to advise these people, try to get in touch with them privately. Um, and there's no. I mean, there are people who their only thing that they seem to do is to look for the errors of others, and they're trying to make a career for themselves out of pointing out people's errors. So, if that's what you think is beneficial, I think you have some kind of disease in your heart.
Indeed, Sheikh. And Sheikh, this is the reason why it takes me to my next question, which is very interesting point that you raised. In fact, you know what? Let me first explain a few things to my viewers in Urdu, and then I'll get back to you.
Sure.
Uh, शेख यहाँ पर बात कर रहे हैं कि हम कैसे इंटरनेट के ज़रिए ये जो आजकल का जो ज़माना है उस पर जिस तरह से इंफॉर्मेशन फैली हुई है, कैसे हम चाहें तो उस इंफॉर्मेशन से फ़ायदा भी उठा सकते हैं और उस इंफॉर्मेशन से गुमराह भी हो सकते हैं। तो इस मौजू के ऊपर शेख के साथ हमारी इंशाल्लाह बातचीत जो है वो चल रही है, और आप लोगों की पार्टिसिपेशन बहुत ही मज़ेदार है। बल्कि आपके लिए मेरे पास एक बहुत ज़बरदस्त, अगर आप देखें तो आपकी स्क्रीन पर इस वक्त चल रहा है, आप लोग अगर चाहते हैं कि मैं आप लोगों को ट्रेन करूं या आप लोगों को हेल्प करूं या गाइड करूं कि आप अच्छे स्पीकर, पब्लिक स्पीकर बन सकें, आपकी अच्छी बॉडी लैंग्वेज हो जाए, तो आप हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब भी कीजिए। और एक स्पेशल गिफ्ट यही होगा, आपने डिटेल सब्सक्राइब करके इसको शेयर करें, और उसके कितने शेयर्स की आप व्हाट्सएप करें इस नंबर पर, तो इंशाल्लाह आपके लिए एक बहुत ही ज़बरदस्त किस्म का सरप्राइज पोस्ट जिसकी कीमत तकरीबन 80,000 रुपये है, जी हाँ, वो आप व्यूअर्स के लिए स्पेशल होगा जो रमज़ान बैठक के व्यूअर्स हैं। Okay, Sheikh.
Hey, I understood enough of that. Let me just give you a comment. When I was a kid, uh, when we were in junior high school, everybody used to have to get up in English class for 5 minutes and do a book report. Like, every 2 months or so, you'd have to do that.
Yeah,
And it was something I used to be so afraid of. I dreaded it. And I read later that uh, public speaking is something that most people are deathly afraid of. It's like very,
absolutely,
very high on their list of fears. Uh,
absolutely.
you know what got me out of that? I accepted Islam in Pakistan, and
And they asked you to come on the member and say a khutbah.
no, 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 no. I went for 4 months with Jamaat Tabligh. I actually accepted Islam with Jamaat Tabligh,
Oh,
and
mashallah. Okay.
um, and you have to get up and give these talks, right? And people always made a big deal about, oh, here's this Gora Sahib,
Gora Sahib.
and so you know having people like listen very attentively to these talks, it made me feel like, oh, this is something it's not the end of the world. I can do it. And so just and the tablighis, they always tell you, look, the point is not how eloquent you are. Speak from your heart. And
Just say
so,
it.
so that was a great experience.
Yeah, no,
One of
sorry, please, one of the.
one of many benefits that I got from tabligh. I mean, that they would consider that a very trivial benefit, but it's nice.
Sheikh, no, that is absolutely true, and that is why, Sheikh, I am encouraging my viewers of Ramzan Baythak that the more you stay here, the more you share this, the more you listen to these words of wisdom that every day we are doing here. Inshallah, I will also give you my course free of cost, in a sense, which is worth 80,000 rupees. It's an expensive one, but I'll give you that training for specific people who are actually going to really show interest. Sheikh, there's one comment for you by one of our very regular listeners, and a great Muslima, Sister Asma, and she says that Sheikh Riaz Ansari is, mashallah, such a smiling scholar, but the scholars here in Indo-Pak have actually made their lips so hard that there is a big distance between them and people like the general public. What do you think is the reason, Sheikh? Was, by the way, why people who are actually, and I'm witness to it, people who are growing above the ladder of religion, or the, I would say, deen, they start becoming very hard at hearts. Why is that?
Well, I can't really comment on that because I don't know the ins and outs of Pakistani culture. So,
Now you have been the Jamaat Islami, Tablighi Jamaat, so you have known you know
well,
them. They are all very smiling.
yeah, I mean, I remember Sheikh oh, uh,
Sadiq
Abdul
Khalil,
Wahab, Abdul
Abdul Wahab.
Wahab at the Rivend. He was very warm, and all of those sheikhs in Rivend were really they were wonderful.
Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for all of us. Okay, Sheikh, you raised a very important point, and that's where I want to take the whole discussion now too. The important point is that the information is available on the net and it is at the palm of your hands. So how do we, I know Sheikh, you being a scholarly person, mashallah, you can probably differentiate between the right and the wrong info, but as a layman, as a general person, as somebody who doesn't have that knowledge, how can they actually validate the authenticity of the information so that it does not mislead them?
Uh, that's huge. That's a huge thing. Um, One of the things that I would like to see every Muslim study is usul al-fiqh,
Indeed.
uh, because it teaches you how to think critically as a Muslim. Uh, and so, if I could wave a magic wand, I would have that as part of the curriculum for high school students.
Indeed.
Uh,
And I agree with you.
but let's say that's not happening. So um, you have to find people whom you trust to
Mhm.
take knowledge from.
But
Um,
that's not happening, Sheikh. The thing is that youth, especially, I'm sorry to interrupt you, youth, especially, just picks up. If you say something, I mean, the other day, I'll give you advice, sorry, a story from my own home. My daughter came, she said, I want to trim my hair. And I said, I don't think, I mean, it was my bad knowledge probably, but I said, I don't think that it is allowed, so I think you shouldn't be doing it. But that's my advice. Rest of that, at the end of the day, it's your choice. So she didn't say anything. She just went outside the room, took her phone, found the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, where she had trimmed her hair, and she came and she said, here's your proof. Now can I do it?
well, from an usuli point of view, I would say none of that was necessary because the asl, the default ruling, the basic ruling for things that are done for worldly benefit is that they're lawful unless you have specific evidence to the contrary.
Mhm.
Um, so, you don't need somebody's precedent uh, to cut your hair. It's something
Yeah, that's
that's
just an example. That's what I'm saying. The kids, they just go on the net and they say, "Oh, I have this hadith." Now you don't even know if that hadith is Hassan or that hadith is Dhaif. People have no idea. So that's what I'm saying. As a layman, how can they save themselves from the fitna of getting delusionized? If you may.
well, that's the point. Is that you can't get past that issue of uh, trusted sources of information. Um, so now people can be charismatic, and therefore people trust them. Uh, I'll give you an example. I mean, there's somebody who's very popular um, on the net, and he wrote a book about why fiat money is haram. Fiat money is, the government prints money, right?
Mhm.
So he said the only valid kind of money in Islam is gold and silver, and he wrote this little pamphlet about that. And so, there's a couple of verses in the Quran about, you're paying zakat on gold and silver, and the Ashabul Kahf, uh, when
Silver
they woke
coins.
up, yeah, they used silver coin to buy bread or something. So, uh, none of that is a command form. And and then to pad the book, um, he had you know uh, instead of a 2-page book, it became a 30-page book. He said, and gold and silver will, you know, not only have they kept their value over time in this world, they keep their value in the hereafter. And so then he had about 20 pages of verses about gold and silver in paradise. So this is like, well, okay, that's all fine and good, um, but what is the relevance of that to the issue of whether gold and silver are the only valid kinds of money? Now you can make the argument, but it's not a textual argument.
But see,
Um,
that's the issue. That's where the issue is. That's what I'm saying. The what do you call Hazrat Google or Mr. Google has made everybody a scholar. So how do we actually help our youth? I know you keep on saying that we need to find the right sources, but unfortunately, this is the only source right now. Instead of the right source, this is the only source right now. So how can we
well,
indicate that?
well, I think part of the problem there is that scholars are um, a lot of scholars are out of touch. Now, I have to admit that I'm a 20th century guy. Uh, when 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 something goes wrong with my, like I do some online classes, and uh, they had changed the program a little bit, and my mic wasn't working, and I was already supposed to be on, and I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do. So I called my son. Who else are you going to call? Um, and so he came in, and he fixed it for me. So I'm out of touch, and you know a lot of scholars are even more out of touch than I am. Um, so if um, if scholars like the sister who sent that message, if there are scholars who are just unable to deal with the world that's changing, and offer some kind of analysis that makes sense to young people, then there's no alternative for them but Google.
Yeah, but shit, that's why we said that. See, I agree with you, and that is what a lot of people also agree, that the scholars have not upgraded themselves. It's like Nokia. Nokia at one time was the brand of the world, but Nokia did not upgrade itself in terms of technology. So
Mhm.
there is now, I say, no Kia. We did
Yeah.
nothing, right? So, so now, so now, the thing is, having said all what you have said is right. What, as a youth, as a layman, what am I supposed to do, and why? How can I save myself? That's my question. That's one thing which I think with today's youth, because of this globalization, especially the youth of Ummah, is really really confused at. How can they save themselves from getting astray with this kind of pressure of globalization all over them?
Uh,
Step by step, step
it's
by
gonna
step. I'll say
it's
small
gonna
steps.
it's gonna keep getting worse too.
Yeah, I know the Jal is
I was
coming.
I was thinking about this earlier today. Um, one of the groups I'm in, the brothers sent uh, something. I didn't even read it, but I saw the headline. So it's some new um, upgrade on deep fakes. So now you can actually have a AI that takes pictures of somebody who is speaking,
Yes,
and then just put words in his mouth.
yes, that's
Uh,
true.
and and they mix the frames around so that it looks like he's actually speaking. Um, and and now there's something where yeah the where the voice, they can get your phonemes, and just that you type something into a computer and the computer will spit it out in anybody's voice.
Yes,
um, so the the level of deception in the environment is drastically
increasing.
accelerating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another example of the seriousness of the problem that you just mentioned. So to get back to it, you know, I'm sorry, but there is no alternative to seeking out uh, people that are reliable sources of knowledge, and of course there will be differences of opinion about who's a reliable source of knowledge.
Indeed.
So the the ijtihad of a person who can't actually go to the sources directly for themselves is to look for somebody who they consider to be reliable. If you've done that, then that's about as much as you can do. Um, and if you're doing it solely online, you know,
Oh, may Allah have mercy on you.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
again, there are people that are widely recognized as reliable, okay, who are online sources of information. But you have these people who go online and they seek out these rabble rousing
Yeah.
websites. I mean,
Um,
again, if one thing about all of this is that and there's wisdom to be found from wise non-Muslims too, and
of
and
course.
and again, there's a whole lot of stuff I don't buy from Jordan Peterson, but one thing that I think he's really very, very uh, correct about, and it's the core of his message, which is um, before you can think about changing the world, you need to take stock of yourself, clean your
Indeed.
room before you clean the world. So um, if you have these diseases just you know you're bursting at the seams with uh, you know love of your own opinion, and uh, you know you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Anybody who disagrees with me must be evil. so
Yeah.
so if you've got this in your heart, and also kind of stuff like, wait a minute, uh, I didn't get I didn't get that A I deserved in engineering class. My teacher flunked me. That teacher must be an agent of the devil. So you have all of these kinds of blame the
Vic-
world for your own
victim
problem.
mentality.
Yeah, if you're if you're not dealing with your own situation first, and you're looking to find someone to blame outside, and then you latch on to that kind of stuff, you know, nuwallihi ma tawalla. It's that same thing. Allah will put the wind in your sails. You want to go that way? There's a whole universe of a you can go that way until you run out of life. Uh,
Agreed.
so so you have to really, take stock of yourself and want good for yourself and the people around you. uh, and based on that to look for information.
Indeed. Sheikh, before I say anything else, because we are coming towards the end, my mother is saying, blessings be upon you and all Muslims who understand Islam and practice it. Good hearing your talk. So she's always listening to my shows and she's saying this
May
for you.
Allah bless your mom.
Jazakallah khair,
the,
Jazakallah khair.
my daughter's favorite saying is the the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. She always uses that when I blame her for something, right?
That's
But
true.
I'm going to use it for the other side.
Sheikh, coming towards the end, I would, if we have to give or take baby steps, especially when our youth comes to us, and this is the problem that I see. Reliable sources in the West, mashallah, are mostly smiling people like you. But in the East, if you go and ask somebody, is there any God? And this is a legitimate question to be asked, to me personally. The
Hmm.
guy will take out his sword and say, how dare you say something like that? This is blasphemy.
Mm.
So, in this scenario, if a child comes to you, to me, anybody else, and wants to seek answers to questions which are innocent questions, which don't mean that he is evil, how should we be treating them? Words of advice.
Um, well, let me tell you a story about my sister. My sister is a non-Muslim.
Still, huh?
She, yeah, she grew up in Afghanistan. She went all through high school in Afghanistan. And when I accepted Islam, she we had one conversation about Islam, and then we never talked about it again. Uh, and I could sense that she didn't want to talk about it. So then a couple of years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, I visited her. It was just the two of us, and in the course of that visit, she shared a story with me. When she was in first grade in Afghanistan, she had Islamiyat class,
Yeah.
and so she had to memorize Panj Surah, Fatiha and the four
Mhm.
Quls.
Mhm.
And and my mom didn't know it, and my father was busy. And so when it was her turn to recite, she just stood up and she couldn't say it. And the teacher, who was a Afghan lady, uh, she said to her directly, but all the other girls in the class listening, she said, "You know why you can't do that? Because your mother's a kafir."
Allah.
That that the
The
pain
sentence.
that she injured my sister with. My sister is was 65 years old or something like that. She still remembered it, and she's never liked religious teachers ever since. So, the Prophet ﷺ said a person can say a word without even thinking twice about it, and it plunges them into hellfire.
Mhm.
So, so you have to give people a little bit of respect, and realize that everybody has questions, and
Yes.
if you can't if you're getting angry at the question, it means probably because you don't have an answer for it.
Absolutely. 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 This is so true, Sheikh. And I always tell in my talks to my students and people I come across that there is one sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it was also the sunnah of Jibreel, that was also the sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and every Nabi or every Rasul that we have totally forgotten today, and that is question. Ask. "Wama adraka ma Laylatul Qadr?" It's a question, and there are many like this.
In
So
fact, I think somebody looked at the whole Quran and they said basically there's at least one question on every page.
absolutely right. And that is a sunnah which we are not reviving. In fact, we are snubbing and brushing it away as if it's a sin to be committed. What do you think? And that is my last question of the day before I ask you for your thoughts. What do you think is the reason why we have become so, uh, I would say, tough when people ask questions?
Well, I think it's a relic of that village mentality.
Mhm.
You know, the Japanese have a saying that the nail that sticks out gets hammered down.
Yes, that's true.
So if you ask a question, it means you're not down with the program.
You have not yet been submitted yourself to the
Yeah,
superiors.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's absolutely right, Sheikh. And may Allah make it easy for all of us that we become patient enough to understand that asking questions is actually divine, is actually it's a sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Anbiya and Rusul. Sheikh, any last comment or message or point that you would want to make before I make a dua, inshallah?
Well, I would just want to express my appreciation to you for what you're doing, because
Exactly.
you're being proactive. You know, if everybody does something within their power, within their circle, you know, that parable of the king, you know, he said, he told his courtiers, do you all love me? They said, yeah, we love you. And he said, okay, everybody who loves me should bring some milk and pour it in this pool tonight. And the wazir thought to himself, you know, if I just bring some water, it won't. Nobody will notice, you know. And he poured water in the pool at night, and then the next morning, the pool had nothing in it but water. So, you know, what everybody does is important, and if we give our best and have that concern for improving the situation, you know, that's what counts. That's what it takes.
Absolutely, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, because this is not me doing things actually. I always say that Allah, in fact, one of my friends, he says, it's not that I qualify, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He loves me, so He will qualify me if He wants me to do a job. So
No.
it's his way of giving me an opportunity to be forgiven. Probably, maybe this might be there. So, inshallah, uh, uh, Sheikh, I always end up with a few duas, which is my very favorite ones. That may Allah make it easy for all of us. May Allah make us from those who are blessed enough to drink the water of Kausar from the cause from the hands of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and we may become one of those who are in those highest Jannahs where we can be the slaves and khadim of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and do his do his khidmat. Maybe whatever we have said, discussed, talked about, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it in our mizan, and we and the Yawm al Qiyamah in those Jannahs become witnesses for each other in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we did this for the sake of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I love you and all my audience for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ameen, ameen. Jazakallah khair.
शेख व्यूअर्स इजाज़त लेते हैं आपसे भी. Thank you very much for being a great audience. Sheikh, Jazakallah khair once again for being here, for your time. I know you've just done your iftar and you must be hungry, and I've stopped you from eating food. So Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi